on YouTube?
Huh?
You're on YouTube?
Yeah. Live and direct, you are tuned into the Bro Diallo show. That was Dick Gregory live in UCLA in 1972. Today is Dick Gregory's birthday. We lost a great ancestor last year, but you know, I had to bless everyone with some of his wisdom and insights and comedy. But going on to the show, today's topic is deconstructing DOS. I've got Chris Marshall and China Fox on the scene. Wait, let me see. Okay, now they can hear y'all.
Okay.
Sorry.
Hey,
all right.
Hey.
What's up? And so today we're going to be talking about. Let's cut. Today we're going to be talking about deconstructing DOS, which is the descendants of slave movement, because we had the Queen Mother. I don't know what her official title is. Grand Wizard of the DOS. I'm not sure what Yvette's, the Pied Piper of DOS. I'm not sure what her official title is in the movement,
Did
but
you say Grand Wizard?
I don't know. I'm not in the movement. If I knew the proper terminology, I'd use it.
It's the priest of the condo, negresses.
Right.
No,
Well,
you can't say priestess because that's escapism.
Oh yeah, that's escapism. Yeah, I'm trying to go back to my. I'm trying to go back to my. I think it's condensation. I think that's what I'm trying to go back to.
right.
I'm escaping because I don't have a homeland apparently.
Right. So long story short, she was here in town. She came through to bless the city of Chicago, city of Chirac, Illinois. Oh, I didn't do the proper intro. Give me 1 second. See, I don't know how to act when company come over. I was always that kid.
And you can't blame me for breaking that thing this time.
No, this is something different. You
I
broke.
know.
You did break the other
I did
one,
not break it.
and you hear from our lawyer.
Listen,
So
I would expect Erica to return the kindness, okay?
But Erica's not, she's not rational about such things.
What you
I
mean
don't
she's
know
not
how I get in
rational
trouble
about-
by
How
other
did you get
people's
in
thoughts.
trouble? No, okay, so
See, you weren't there. You weren't there to deal with the aftermath of your actions. But let me be professional. This is Q4 Radio, AM 1680, TuneIn app, iTunes Radio, www.org. Today is the 12th of October, the year of your Lord, that I'm officially declaring Dick Gregory Day. Okay, now we can get back to hateration.
Yep.
Snitchification. But as the Minister Farrakhan said, I should address my problems with China to you. Because he said he wasn't happy with Beyonce gyrating on stage, and that Jay-Z needed to chickadee check her before she riggedy wrecked herself.
Or are you talking about like way back in the day, or?
This was relatively recently, about a year and a half ago.
I mean,
I think it was just prior or Lemonade. I don't know. I don't know I don't follow Beyonce.
Oh yeah, it was that Wild Out. Yeah, it was Wild Out.
It was something, but Farrakhan, I believe he was on the Breakfast Club.
Oh yeah, I saw. Actually, I was listening to the radio while he was on the Breakfast Club. And did you get to hear the song that he played?
No.
That apparently Tina Marie gave him or wrote him a song or gifted him a song, and he played it on the radio, and it was called "Message to the Black Man."
Tina Marie, the R&B singer.
Message to the Black Man.
Tina Marie, the R&B singer.
I'm talking square biz.
Is she one of us? Is she a descendant of a slave?
No, I think she's a descendant of a colonizer, so that
Dang.
would make her a
Dog.
descendant of colonizers. DOC.
Or
I don't know. I
DOM,
think Rick
descendant
James
of
was
master.
weird stuff, so no, but it was so weird and it was so strange.
Everything about Farrakhan and Islam is weird to me.
Yeah,
I tried to join, and they literally locked the door. You know when you get the door and put the chain on the door and then open it through. That's how I swear to you, that's what they did to me.
You tried to join the nation?
Yes, I tried to join the nation.
And maybe they could.
Well, I was in Kansas City. And
okay.
I was like, I'm off the swine. I'm off the Jesus.
All right.
I'm a poor black man. What else is there for me? And y'all relative, y'all younger than me. Y'all don't know. Back in the 90s, 91, 1990, the NOI was a different beast. You know, Farrakhan was running around calling out the Jews and gutter religion, and he was talking about the Zionists. And so I went, and they had a study group at one of the ministers or one of the NOI members' homes. And so I read Message to a Black Man in America, and I read How to Eat to Live, and I was reading Muhammad Speaks and The Final Call. And I'm like, I'm going to get with this program. And so I went to the study group, and everything that was in Message to the Black Man and what Muslims believe and what Muslims want was inconsistent what was being said in the gatherings. So I'm like, wait a minute, this ain't our doctrine. First day I'm there. I'm like, this is not what we believe. This is not our agenda. Let's get back on agenda. Let's get back on message. And I came back to the following week, and they didn't let me in.
Oh, wow. Because they always changing it, right? They always change it. Oh, my goodness. One day they Baptist. One day they Scientology.
One day they can't vote. One day Farrakhan's endorsing politicians. One day Judaism is a gutter religion. Next day he's playing in an all-Jewish orchestra, playing a violin in an all-Jewish. So it's always been kind of weird to me. That's my real problem. That
it's just super conservative. Like, it just seems like every day they become more and more, Republican.
What? Yeah, well, that's all. That they were always pull yourself up by your bootstraps. They were always, relatively the far right. But like I said, I shot my shot, and I got rejected by the nation. But
I remember they weren't the nation, but we had some family friends. We still have family friends that are Muslims. Longtime family friends, probably like 30 years. We've known this family that lived down the street from us, and I remember going to one of the sisters of the family. I remember going to her wedding, and I just became vegetarian, and I hated. I don't know. I think I was super conservative, and I really wanted to be a Muslim. I was like, okay, if Christianity is not it, then it's gotta be Islam.
No.
Yeah, well.
Well, my dad is a Muslim.
Oh, okay.
And my older brother is a Muslim, and my second oldest brother is a Muslim. So I was raised on bean pies and fish sandwiches.
Yikes.
And they would always tell me, man, you would make such a good Muslim. But my grandmother told me if I became a Muslim, I'd burn in hell. And she said, whenever you get a little money, the Muslims come and get you. They got Muhammad Ali. They got Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Do you want the Muslims to get you? This is when I was like 8. I'm like, I don't want the Muslims to get me. Why they coming to get us? Oh, they want you to go to hell. That's why they coming to get you.
That's messed up.
And so, I was raised in this. And my dad would come and pick me up or visit with me at my grandmother's house. And he'd come in the house and say, Assalamu alaikum. And my grandmother would say, hot bologna sandwich.
Oh.
And then my dad would take me and be like, your grandmother's going to hell, and she's violating Allah. And so I was like, everybody's going to hell, and so that was the thing. But I figured it out. They were both, delusional. But I never was attracted to the Yaqub and the big head scientist and the grafted man and your hair. And Africans, before we entered oppression, our hair was like our eyebrow. I was just like, this is back when they were still running that hustle. They were going to buy up land, tracts of land. This is when they were running the hustle back in the early 90s. They had the secret cure for AIDS, but they weren't going to give it to Uncle Tom's. They were only going to give it to woke. There was all kind of rumors and nonsense floating around back then. So I'm like, well, I would sit in my grandmother's church, eating mints and going along. And I would sit there because there was fellowship after service. So after fellowship, we'd have cookies and all kind of good food, and I get to run around and play with my friends. I'm like, I could coast on the spookiness, and then when it's time for the real work, so that's what I thought. but it is what it is. They rejected me
Unfortunately.
first.
You know what? Chris showed me the eyebrows,
Oh,
matching
because we were
the hair
listening to
and the
SETI.
nose and I'd never heard that before, like a month ago or something like that.
Cassetti was going off, and I think Cameron, I think he may have shared it, but he was going off on them because he always goes off on them. I guess every few months, So
Keep the balance.
Seti's
keep it-
still around. I haven't heard from Seti in a minute.
He's still making music.
he's still doing his thing.
Yeah.
He's banging on that
He's
beat
still banging on that beat.
daily. Daily. See, my mandate is weekly. I daily. That's a bit.
Yeah,
I got other
that's
things to do, but at least
that's a lot.
But the reason I asked you guys in today is because I don't know her title. Queen Mother, Grand
You know
Wizard.
what?
I will just call her the Grand Wizard until she
I
unblocks
would-
me and lets me know what her official title in the deal
Well,
is.
she unblocked Chris. She like
Oh, man.
I know she went
It-
and
I mean,
found
it's
me
so
on all
pathetic.
social
It's just
media
so,
and
it's
blocked
just
me.
horrible.
Well,
It's
I
horrible.
got blocked, unblocked, and then she asked me if I have criticisms of her to contact her personally.
Yo, isn't that bizarre? Like everybody's telling me, oh, you could kept this private. Oh, why are
They
you
always say
critiquing
that.
her in public?
They
Oh,
always
she
say
tell
that.
y'all that? Oh, see, I thought it was something
her
more
minions,
to it. Her coming to me like
her minions.
when she asked me to slide into her DMs. I
That's
thought
like
it was.
a-
I'm glad it was.
I don't know if that's like a church thing. I don't know if it's a condo house negress type thing, but I mean,
Head
it's-
house negress. There we go.
head house negress. Cause I'm just trying to figure out, like, I guess the initial issue to me, it just seems like because she didn't identify as a bootstrapping, capitalist, she felt like because I guess she was left of them that she identified as a black radical, and then everybody started backpedaling, and then China had an issue with it. China had an issue with her. I had an issue, but I was trying to figure out, like with anything, if you claim something, just prove it. Just show me where's the reference, where's the info. I mean, just where's the evidence. But
Well,
I mean, we couldn't find nothing.
I think the thing here's the
See,
thing.
but y'all
I
can't.
didn't have an issue with her. That's what was so intense with me, right? Is because when
You agree with the
when-
DOS agenda
Well-
and ideology.
Well, I didn't know any better. I didn't understand her ideology because she didn't understand her ideology. And I don't think she still understands her ideology. So when I first found about Yvette Carnell, I didn't know she was on Your Black World. I didn't know she was with Boys. I honestly didn't pay, even though Boys lived down the street from me, I didn't pay too much attention to him. But I didn't know that.
You didn't see all that money falling out his pocket? And though
Wow.
that gilded limousine pulling up to drive him off every day as he goes off to
okay.
make, huh?
That
Oh,
new
you
magic.
didn't
See that, you
black
didn't see that
capitalism.
helicopter pad on his
I
house?
must
You
have
didn't
missed
question that luxury palace with the
Yeah,
helicopter
right.
pad in black
Oh,
cap.
man.
All the you didn't see all the joys of black capitalism,
No, all I
Of-
saw
of
was Save
economic
Save a Lot.
Juneteenth.
That's all I saw was Save a Lot. But
What?
I,
Yeah, I ain't gonna let y'all just.
no, I'm not even gonna put that out there like that. But
Because he's a
people who
financial
saw that video,
guru.
I did. Okay. But
I don't just know
no.
how you
So
would ignore
my
that.
thing was okay. So when I started watching her videos, right, I started understanding a bit more about, as they say, the data, the however you pronounce it, the data, and I thought it was really interesting. I'm like, okay, this is a great perspective, and I thought that like your theory on racial esteem and how black people have racial esteem and across the world, but in particular in the States, because we feel as if we've got abandonment issues, we've been stolen, we feel lost, we feel like we don't have a country, we have lacked real true culture, not just clothing and food and awful music. Like we lacked substance. And so she was attempting to, I thought with my optimistic, hopeful self. This is my negativity life coach. He trained me to be a negativity life coach. But I thought it was honestly a move to fill a void and to get us to have our own tribe to fight, not to form this, this black tea party to fight against
But that's
our
the thing. People don't understand the difference between tribe and tribalism. It's like the difference between individual and individualism.
Right.
I have no problems with people having tribes. I have friends who are Oromo, who are Luo, who are Kikuyu, who are Yoruba.
Great point.
But they are tribe and they got their own really, funny tasting food and sucking music and weirdo rituals. But when it comes to understanding their interdependence, interconnectedness, and their obligation to other African people, they're not tribalist. They're tribal members. It's just like I'm an individual. Yeah, I have my own way of doing things, but I don't center everything that I do around myself. And so, yeah, I don't have a problem with black people. Well, I do have a problem with black people, in terms of what we define as our culture in the United States, in terms of soul food or hip hop or whatever, urban culture, southern culture. I don't have a problem with that. But there's not enough depth, there's not enough history, there's not enough raw numbers to orient or organize a viable political movement around that limited history and those limited numbers and those limited objectives that if you score a win on each of the descendant of slave objectives, you won't have advanced one iota really. It's a status quo type ideology. It's an integrationist type movement.
Well, it's an ideology built on contradictions.
And self-hate.
And in itself, it's telling you that you're, okay, so we did go to event, Breaking Brown had met.
Did we, for our listeners, do we explain what DOS is?
No, we haven't.
You said, well,
it's descendant of slaves. I call them condo Negroes or mansion Negroes, depending.
All right, so let's just back up because I don't want to get to when you went there to actually confront or engage with Yvette until we explain. Because I had a few things I wanted to touch on. I brought the wrong notebook, but I'm gonna let slide haterations, snitching. I'm going to follow the Farrakhan code, and my complaints with you, I will address it in the spirit of true black nationalism. But let's first talk about understanding what is DOS. What is the descendant of slaves? What does that mean? Their belief and their basic agenda.
Okay.
Well, I mean, like in a nutshell, it's basically reducing your history only to the United States and distancing, yourself from, the rest of the it's just keeping it, like in the U.S. and you're only, American, but you're not black, you're not African. And sometimes they will say, black natives, but even if you define blackness, like in the way that we know it, it's just American. So they keep trying to change it and move the goalposts. But
well, I think there's a difference between what they think it is and what it actually is. And so we're actually going to do a video later this afternoon where we go into detail about what they think it is, what it actually is, and where it kind of formulated. And so from my introduction into the DOS movement was actually through Dr. Jared Ball. So Yvette had Dr. Ball on her show, and he was discussing the myth of
Black buying power. Yeah, he's actually been on this show.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, early in its inception.
Oh, cool.
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, we actually went to go see his lecture.
We saw, I think, one of the latest Myth of Black Buying Power lectures. So
in person, so that we could ask him questions, and that's when I really started to get.
And the last one,
did he have y'all thrown out like Yvette threatened?
Nah,
absolutely
was he
not.
ducking and dodging y'all like
absolutely
Yvette?
not.
Y'all come to my lecture.
I mean, it was horrible because I mean, here's
Wait,
the-
wait,
oh.
we can't get to that yet.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Wait,
yeah,
Oh,
okay.
right,
we
right,
can't get to that
right,
yet.
right, okay.
Wait, wait,
We're talking about
Oh,
descendant of slaves. Well,
DOS.
someone just asked, and which is what always, when you a descendant of slaves, does that include Brazilians?
No.
No.
Does that include
It's-
Jamaicans?
It's only
Does that
American
include?
slaves in the United States.
It-
So
okay, so that because people are
it's-
like, well, what about the entire diaspora?
It's
That
from
is
slavery
itself
on.
is another contradiction.
So it's your history from the point you got here, in America to now, and I guess anything that happened prior to us getting
So
here.
Haitians aren't descendants of
no,
slaves.
No,
No,
Haitians.
nope.
Wow.
no.
So it's only American slaves. So it's basically this.
What
whole
about the ongoing trade between Caribbean plantations? Remember, there was an intercontinental trade between the Caribbean, Latin America, and the United States. Africans were literally shipped it back from the Virginians to Jamaicans, and they would bring Jamaican. The movie Sankofa. Remember the movie
Oh.
Sankofa?
They
All
kinda
the slaves
buried that
had
one.
different accents because they were coming up from Jamaica and Trinidad, and they were sending southern plantations for seasonal. They would literally like gather up the slaves, put them on a boat, and send them down to get after they finished the cotton harvest, ship them down to Caribbean to do the cane harvest. So how do you? It was an international.
Yeah, it was global. Well, or transatlantic at least.
But
right?
you have to have a U.S. citizenship to be an official DOS.
Well, here's the thing. That's another one of the contradictions is that while all of this was going on, we did not have any sort of citizenship. We had no humanity. And so the very foundation of this movement is a contradiction. You can't. So anyway, so the DOS movement is basically having a justice claim based upon our citizenship as Americans, that they owe us reparations, and that it is up to us to engage our government and use, as Yvette said on Saturday, our greatest resource is our citizenship, our American citizenship, to force the government to give us back what they stole.
Pay us reparations. Now, the thing that was kind of troubling was that they don't give data on how much land, how much money, how many resources, and they never talk about, building institutions. It's solely about getting resources to become good Americans, and it's really disturbing because I'm trying to figure out, like, okay, you have the whole, racial wealth gap, but there's no hard numbers on, Reconstruction, Jim Crow, slavery, and I mean, you can even add, mass incarceration now, but it's just very disturbing that, they always talk about data and then had the nerve to talk about political education, but it's just solely about getting reparations to become an elite class, in a nutshell.
Would Barack Obama qualify as a descendant of slaves?
No.
No.
He's a black U.S. citizen.
I think she calls him like a white Kenyan. That's her whole thing.
But he wouldn't qualify. So even though he has U.S. citizenship, and he
No.
does have a heritage of discrimination.
Well, there's a caveat to that.
Uh-huh.
He would have to prove that his ancestors did not participate in the African slave trade. He would have to prove, since she's going on.
Skip the what?
The gate.
No,
skip the truth gate.
Skip the truth gate.
Since she's going off of the article that he wrote that 90% of the Africans sold in the slave trade were sold by other Africans, you would have to prove that your ancestors or your parents or whatever weren't active participants in the slave trade. And then you could possibly get a piece of the pie.
And she even she now is saying that, Africans have to pay reparations because they gain wealth, from slavery. And she got that from, Skip the Truth. And it's just kind of crazy because, this idea that only, DOS, are going to give reparations is just absurd,
Do Africans deserve reparations for colonization?
Well,
According to her, no.
What about the Vietnamese? And do they deserve reparations for being invaded by the United States? And the black soldiers who were drafted into the U.S. military to go over there, and most of the black soldiers were put on the front lines. Do the black soldiers here, will they have to, when they get their reparations check, if your father or was a veteran of the Iraq War. So when you start to,
Yeah, I mean, it
it's
does
like
make sense.
everybody.
I mean,
If
'cause-
you're really defining in terms what makes you worthy of reparations under colonization, and can I just ask you this? Why did white people go steal the land? Why did white people go steal the resources? Why did the white people go and rape and take everything they wanted? But then when it came time to slaves, they sat down with those same Africans they just stole land and resources from. Sit down and negotiate and pay for the slaves.
They
That's a
don't
great question.
because they didn't.
That's a
Oh
great
yes,
question.
they did.
Oh,
Didn't
really?
they?
Yeah.
Because they got money, and now the Africans, because
Oh,
like,
yeah, now the Africans
I'm
are
gonna kick in your
colonizers.
front door. I'm gonna kick in your front door. I'm like, this is my house. I'm gonna start killing half the people in the house, rape the other half of the people, and then I'm like, ooh, you frying some chicken? How much for that chicken you frying? I'm gonna pay for the chicken. Chill. What? How does that work? I mean, I don't understand how they took everything and then they colonized the African, and then they set and had an economic. It's like,
I mean, it's along the same rationale that they'll give it back just because you show them that what they did was unfair. It doesn't make any sense. So it's along the line of the same delusion of the church. And when you look throughout the comment section, even that's what tripped me out when I started to see these violent comments.
It's kind of like, it's similar to when you confront people about Farrakhan and what he said about Malcolm X. So there's no evidence, there's
what did
no
he
scholarship.
what did he
Oh.
say about Malcolm X?
He said that's how a nation deals with a traitor, and if that's how we deal with them, then it's no business of yours. It was, something, to that degree.
He said, did you make Malcolm? Did you clean up Malcolm?
Yeah.
Did you educate Malcolm? Was Malcolm yours or was Malcolm ours?
Yep.
And he said, if we dealt with Malcolm the way a nation is supposed to deal with a traitor, and what business is it of yours? So he claimed that the nation built Malcolm, even though in his own autobiography, Malcolm was not awakened or enlightened by the Nation of Islam. Malcolm saw the Nation of Islam as a conduit to help his people after he was already enlightened. And if I always say, if you go back and listen to Minister Malcolm's speeches, his association with the Nation of Islam retarded his growth.
No, it did. I mean, and I think
You look to pre-NOI versus post-NOI analysis of Malcolm.
And it looks like his attraction kind of was his association with his dad being, in the Back to Africa movement,
Right.
with the UNIA. And even when I'm looking at a lot of their positions, it seems like he made them, with the Palestine, position, with a lot of the politics, because they were always apolitical. So if you look at all of the time that he was involved, he made them. I mean, he was LeBron, and they were Cleveland, to be honest. So, I mean, it's just crazy.
But not to
Never
distract from
heard
your
that
point, you
before.
said it's like when he claimed that they had a right to assassinate Malcolm because they owned, and he was a wholly owned subsidiary of the Nation of Islam, so they had the right to neutralize Malcolm.
And, I think our issue was that, they kept trying to claim things and hop on, the other things that, other people, were identifying with. So, for example, with even Dr. Ball, they would cherry pick a lot of his work, but then they would completely exclude his political work. So they would use the data, and then they wouldn't talk about any, of the politics. So when I would ask them questions about Kwame Ture, Malcolm X, Frantz Fanon, they even used Frantz Fanon Saturday, but they said that's outdated. Identifying, with Africa is escapism, and they basically said, we can have black radical, tradition with no black radicals, and they basically tried to, make the whole thing, the whole political education, just graphs on, the racial wealth gap, but that just wasn't good enough. And I think they were, interpreting, the information kind of how people sit at church and learn through, bullet points. And it was just very disturbing because they couldn't give you any, political education. And then I brought up the point that they decided to choose Eric Foner over Du Bois in terms of, like in terms of
Like a political reference?
no, Black Reconstruction.
Oh, Reconstruction.
So you gave me the book, it was Black Power, the Human Side, I think, of Reconstruction, and even before the Mayflower, going to Carter G. Woodson with the miseducation of the Negro, and what I figured out, I'm like, this isn't about politics, and then low key they tried to make it seem like it was unbiased, but it was a Democratic Party event for the 20th board. So to keep it 1,000, it was just real disturbing because I'm like, all these older people who supposed to know more than me, we didn't hear no Fred Hampton, in Chicago talking about black politics. We didn't hear Carter G. Woodson, who graduated from the University of Chicago, and I mean, we didn't get no Black Panther education, we didn't get George Jackson, we didn't get anything. So their response was that, those people are dead.
Oh, well, wait, no.
They didn't make money.
Yvette didn't respond at all. She
No.
refused to answer my questions. She refused to answer another young woman's questions. She blatantly refused. She died. See, here's the thing. Here's what happens, right? What happens is, she's crafty.
Is she?
She's crafty.
I disagree.
By crafty, what do I mean?
Because now we're talking about when you guys got to the Yvette event. So
look, the woman is crafty. If the sheer ability of her to have a following at all is a testament to her
but I have a
craftiness.
theory about that.
Because she knows how to duck and dodge. Now, crafty doesn't mean brilliant. Crafty doesn't mean
Right.
swift. Crafty doesn't mean witty. Crafty doesn't mean well learned. I can't say the other part of crafty, but the crafties are those
Let's
things.
talk about her.
But they know how to
her
deceive.
rise, because basically she just bastardizes financial Juneteenth. She was with boys, and their whole thing was get money.
Yep.
That was the whole thing. Black people get money.
It ain't changed.
And she has basically bastardized his whole get money thing. It's another money getting methodology. That's all.
That's
now you
what
can
makes her
capitalize
crafty.
money getting money. But here's why I wrote this, why it was so popular. Black people are under a system of oppression and mass indoctrination, which orients us to certain things and causes us to shun other things. So if you want to create a mass movement, if you have a mass movement that's based on a spiritual movement versus a mass movement based on research and rationality, you're going to blow up. If you got a black movement telling black men, your your suffering is the result of black women. Your suffering is the result of homosexuals. The average brother out there, heterosexual brother's like, I could whoop a woman.
Yep.
I could whoop a punk,
Yep.
a sissy. So if I'm orienting a movement towards my enemy and the source of my pain and what's preventing me from reaching my full potential as a woman and the gays, I'm going to blow up. If I tell you, well, no, your enemy is actually the guy out there in the super tanker and the guy out there in the nuclear submarine, your enemy are the CEOs, the white man, I'm not going to raise, oh, you're just trying to blame, you're making excuses. Because the brother, no, I can't whoop the Green Berets, I can't whoop the U.S. Marine Force and Air Force. So if you construct a movement that plays off of people's delusions, that plays off of their ongoing indoctrination, even if you claim that what you're doing is trying to liberate them from the state that they're in, you are oppressed, and I'm going to get you out of oppression. Yeah, I want to be non-oppressed, but I tell you that the source of your oppression is someone you already view as weaker than you. If you already been told Africa's a shithole country,
Yep.
I believe you can say that on the radio. They say it on TV. I think they
Yeah, technically,
uncensored
yeah.
shit. So, and I tell you, Africa's a dark continent. African booty scratcher. Black is ugly, and all of that. And then I tell you, hey, yeah, you're black, but you're a unique form of blackness.
Yeah.
And your unique form of blackness rises you above and apart from Africa. That's going to blow up.
Well, according to her latest definition last Saturday, she was specifically asked how she identified. And black was nowhere near part of it. Now, it has gone from descendant of slave to native black to black American black.
Why they keep reworking it?
And
Yeah.
Oh my
now,
gosh, they keep
They
reworking and
moving the
redefining.
goalposts.
now they have completely eradicated as her arguments towards lots of things and, is that they are raceless arguments, but now she identifies as an American descendant of slaves. And so, I mean,
in one exchange I had with her, she redefined and moved the goalpost at least half a dozen times.
yeah.
Oh
Absolutely.
no! And then she went from saying those Africans are our enemies to, oh, we should be proud to be from Africa, but that's neither here nor there. So she would say everything from they're our enemies to they're our brothers and sisters, but you know, and there was a I believe it's one of the Ivy League schools. I believe it was Yale, the Black Student Union, which from its inception
Oh, yeah, I
had
think so,
allowed
yeah.
Caribbean and African students to join and be full participants, had said we only allow black American descendants of slaves to be in the Black Student Union. They didn't want Nigerian students, they didn't want Gambian students, they didn't want Caribbean or Latin American blacks to join the Black Student Union because many of the scholars were going, because black people lose when a Nigerian gets a scholarship, when a Cameroonian business owner gets a grant from the government versus a Detroit business owner.
What's fascinating about all of that is I have more in common with the girl from the south side of Nigeria than I do with Yvette Carnell. And so this idea that somehow you being born in this country makes you my, see, and that's the thing, like, I the reason why I felt susceptible in the beginning to Yvette and even listening to it and not being disgusted like I am now is because I did not have a framework. I did not have context to what she was saying. Even like I was saying before, the first video or one of the first videos that I had seen of her online was when she had Dr. Jared Ball. And so I was like, damn, this man, I can say damn, right?
Yeah, you can say
This man is radical. Like, he is really intelligent. Like, I've never been presented with the idea that the black buying power was a myth. You mean I've been lied to? And so she was the vessel that brought me that. And so that's why I'm saying she's crafty. She knows what she's doing, but it's running out. And you can tell that it's running out. So that's why she doesn't engage with me. And I find it interesting
the movement
too.
is expanding?
She'll engage with men.
Oh.
She'll engage with men, but she won't engage with women.
I mean, it's
Reverse sexism.
expanding, but I mean, to me, like, it's just trying to repackage, integration. And I think what's happening is, they're trying to radicalize the black church and they're trying to dig up.
But it's
the
even worse
movement.
than integration. It's even worse than that. It's more of the Booker T. Remember the
Yeah.
cast down your pale where you stand.
Yeah.
That predates integration. Even Dr. King was like, that's some old handkerchief.
But what's
head.
so crazy about that? Look, hold on. But what's so crazy about that? Somebody put together some kind of booklets for her, right?
No.
But Myth of Black Capitalism goes in on Booker T, and she put that on the book list, but she won't refer to it. So it's so many contradictions
But why did she put that on the book list?
because of Dr. Ball. But
And this,
they don't
and
read
this
those.
is what we're figuring out that it all comes down to. Chris and I rewatched the video, and we're gonna lay this all out on this video this afternoon. Because people say that we don't cite sources and we don't use the data. So we're gonna use the data today, and we're gonna eat this movement up. See, you got my blood pressure high. It's too early for this. So what we did was we started to go back and start looking at these different videos. So I rewatched the very first video that I saw of Yvette Carnell with Dr. Jared Ball, and in it, she agreed with him that it is a colonial issue. So if we're gonna have reparations for one, we have to have reparations for all. And she agreed with him. But then I realized she had just blanked out that whole thing. While he was talking and imparting this incredible knowledge, she had literally, her eyes glazed over A fly could have landed on her pupil and she wouldn't have blinked.
No,
She didn't
but
hear none of it.
Look, this is what really happened. She didn't really do any reading. She didn't really do any research, and nobody could tell her anything because once you get the following, people can't tell you anything.
She went to a HBCU.
She went to Howard, right?
How
She went
dare
to
you
Howard.
question her intellect?
She went to Howard, but is against Kwame Ture.
Ture.
So
She told me straight up Stokely Carmichael was outdated.
she said he was outdated.
Straight
Malcolm
up.
X, outdated. I mean, Dr.
People
Ball.
say I'm lying though.
Yeah, I mean, this is well documented. This is on video, and we even have her on
I
video.
got the screenshot.
Saying
I'm a millennial,
ridiculous
dang
stuff.
it.
But what happened,
Got my
right?
receipts.
Nobody could tell her anything, and then she just started making it up, kind of like Kanye. And then she got to a point where it's like, okay, if I distance myself from Africa, then I'll look powerless enough to where they'll have a moral obligation to give me reparations, even though they stole it, even though we have, the military, industrial complex, they're gonna give it to me because we've suffered, so graciously.
And what's crazy about her move for reparations, when you look at every population that actually secured reparations, they always had a very strong tie with their homeland. The Japanese received reparations for their internment here in the United States after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. The reason why they got reparations is because the United States was negotiating with Japan, and they were trying to get the South China Sea and the Korean War. The U.S. had a lot of interest, and they wanted Japan to reindustrialize and serve their interests. Same thing with the Jews. The Jews got reparations from Germany because of their close ties with Israel. They didn't say descendant of the concentration camps.
Nope.
Because not all Jews went to the concentration camps, but all Jews say, hey, that's our legacy.
Yep.
You put my people there. They don't have, and so every population that I know that has received reparations has maintained ties with their motherland, with their mother continent, and the U.S. generally gives reparations or offers up concessions based on their larger negotiating interests. If Nigeria and the Congo, if Nigeria say, hey, we're shutting down the Delta until black people get their reparations. If the Congo was like, it's done, no more coltan extraction, no more bauxite, no more rare earth phosphorus, nothing. The U.S. would say, okay, because that's how we got civil rights.
Yeah.
And I said this to her, we only got civil rights. We have been marching and getting our heads split open since the end of Reconstruction.
Yep.
So why all of a sudden white folks felt guilty busting nigger heads? When did we just bust one too many heads? Why did they all of a sudden have this civil rights bill? They gave us civil rights in 1860s. 1869, they gave us the black man had the right to vote. Why? Why in 1968? What was happening around the globe in the mid and late 60s that caused them to say, listen, how we treating blacks in this country looks really bad.
Yeah, black power. Yeah, black
Because
consciousness.
that's because white diplomats were going to the UN. They were going to The Hague. They were going to African countries and saying, hey, don't join the communists. Forget the USSR. And like, how are you going to come to Africa and tell me that you bringing me democracy when I see how you treat people in America? And they came back and told those same politicians, hey, the way I can't go over there and negotiate. I can't go over there and pimp and manipulate the Africans because they're looking at the news and seeing water hoses. And that was the impetus. It was an international, the U.S. trying to change its international standing. And guess what? After they secured and won and there was no longer a communist threat, when Africa no longer had a communist alternative, every single civil rights achievement has been slowly turned back. From voting, there's not one that hasn't been turned back. And now we're back in the streets yet again.
I mean, the thing is, anything that they've done for us has always been about them and self-preservation or self-interest. And what I find, well, actually, the one thing that they haven't given us is the right to be white, the right to be normal, because also
I mean, that's what she said, right?
on Saturday she told us that our objective should be to be normal. And since white people aren't going to give up their whiteness, we need to be made white. Quote, we need to be made white. And again, people are calling me a liar.
And they said it
Said
was
that I
taken
made
out of
that up,
context, right?
That we took it out of context. But then she said after that, we need to be made white because white is normal and they've made black abnormal.
So abandon blackness.
Exactly, and that's the one thing that they have not given us is whiteness.
And so she tried to redefine blackness as failure. Now we just had Black Power movement, Black consciousness.
Black is beautiful.
Black is beautiful. So
Black and proud.
So she got into her more bag, you know, and black is just Crayola, black means failure. You know, if you identify with that, you know, if you identify as white, then they'll just grant you protection, wealth, and, you know, everything that, you know, God.
But all white
you know,
people haven't
earned.
secured
I mean,
whiteness.
They haven't.
All white people haven't fully. The Russians have been trying to become white for the last 1,700
Ukraine,
years.
right? I don't think
The
Ukraine,
Eastern
yeah.
Europe,
Right.
even the Turks. Remember the sick man
We
of
were
Europe?
just
The
talking
Turks
about
are
that. Yeah, the Turks,
Europeans.
yeah.
Talking about that.
They're in Europe and they're Europeans. The Turks, all white people. And I always tell, if a black person wants equality with white people, they don't know white people's history, and they don't even know white people's contemporary realities. And yes, you see them driving nice SUVs in those soulless, mindless suburbs, you know, and you want to be able to go to Costco and you want to be able to pay your phone bill on time. But beyond that, there's nothing really desirable there.
And that's probably where she's getting her line of logic from. She's probably looking at how these groups who weren't considered white, who were ousted, well, if they could do it, we can do it too, so long as we put somebody else on the bottom.
Right.
If we have somebody that can take our place, then we'll be okay. So now we have to come together
And
and
she
unite.
wants the African Caribbean immigrants to take our place.
Well, let me tell you,
That's
she
right.
went in on so I said my little piece, right? The man tried to take the microphone from me, but I'm 6 feet tall, so he was gonna have to wrestle it out my hands. But after she refused to take my comment and my question, there was a doctor on the panel,
The
yeah,
DePaul professor.
Dr. Johnson, Valerie.
Yeah, Valerie.
Dr. Valerie
Yeah,
Johnson
Valerie
was on.
Johnson.
Political scientist.
She answered my inquiry as best as she could, and then afterward there was an African man, a Nigerian man, who asked her, why couldn't we unite? Why couldn't we have a united fight? We all are suffering. We all suffer pain, but you're my brother. You're my sister. He literally said this, and she unleashed on him.
She's always saying they don't like us. They don't want us
She
over there. They don't
unleashed
accept us.
on him, and she said something to the effect of, don't quote me, but I'm going to give all the receipts this afternoon. She said, anybody who wants to come for me can come for me, and I'll take them on, or something like
Nobody
that.
want her.
Yeah, but she was quiet when she couldn't even look me in the eye.
But what did she tell the African because that counters her
She
narrative.
said you could be our ally.
And then she would try
And
to
go fight for your own
backpedal
reparations.
and then say that it was the Igbo tribe who sold all these Africans, and then she's trying to, you know, like direct all of her, you know, animosity towards Africans. And it's just pathetic because, you know, as soon as, you know, we wanted, you know, any kind of answers
So
on.
we can't unite with Africans on the continent because
No.
they participated in the slave trade. But we can unite with the United States of America.
Yeah,
Exactly,
so-
exactly.
Because, like, for her, she wants to be American to be white. Now, people will say I'm reaching, but even she
said
I
it.
mean, she said it. She said we need to be made white. And even Malcolm X said when Negroes say I want to be American, they want to be made white. They want to be made white as snow.
They want, right, and that's why it predates the integrationist movement. This is the Booker T. Washington, cast down your pale where you are. We have to demonstrate to white people that we are worthy and willing to be full-on citizens, that we will hold no
Exactly.
animosity for past injustices, and we're willing to proceed on. But to be American doesn't just mean you get that paper. To be American means you have to destroy the ecology and ecosystem. To be American means you have to support imperialism. To be American means you have to sanction genocide.
But hold
What
on.
about
believe
those
imperialism
aspects and agendas that America is carrying out?
But here's the interesting thing I picked up on, right? It was 20th Ward, it was a Democratic Party event, right? And then I thought about it. Kwame Ture, he was against Zionism, right?
Right.
So they deliberately excluded Black Power. They deliberately wouldn't talk about the Black Panther Party because they've always been they've been pro PLO. So even I'm reading Huey Newton and he's over, like in Mozambique, and he's trying to talk about how to, work together. So what I realize is political education is just regurgitating all these, it's just regurgitating, economic charts, but there's no actual, like political education. So it's very disturbing that all we get is that we got to be totally committed just to getting wealth. But as you have said before, wealth doesn't keep you from getting killed. Wealth doesn't, allow you to buy a house. Wealth isn't going to help you get elected. I mean, in terms of, like, it's not going to help you.
But it ain't really wealth, it's riches.
It's riches, because it's no means of production.
You ever see Schindler's List?
I've seen some of it.
And they show where they went into the wealthy Jewish district, and they told the Jews, you have 3 hours to abandon your home. And these Jews were literally, they had fur coats and diamond rings, and they were carrying literally bricks of gold in their pocket, and they had finest silver. And they were marching, this is in Poland actually, it wasn't even in Germany, it was in Poland, in Krakow. And all these wealthy Jews were marching down the street with all this opulent, all this money, cash money, gold, silver, finest paintings. They're carrying these big, expensive $1 million Renaissance paintings. And the Germans, and while they're marching down the street, the poor Poles, the poor were like thumbing their noses and flipping them off. They had this little white girl, a blonde-haired white girl in this tattered, soiled dress. And the rich Jews and everybody spitting and throwing and laughing at them. And when they got to the cattle cars, they were like, we just wanted to let y'all have that little bit of taste of hope. And they had to pile up all their riches. And they've been hunting Nazi gold. No people have been protected by wealth. Wealth doesn't protect you from racism or fascism.
And then had the nerve to say our citizenship was our greatest resource. But, we just saw the Van Dyke trial. We just see how we redline.
Name a constitutional right that black people don't have violated daily.
Well, my thing is
I can't
this.
find one.
The day after the Laquan McDonald trial, she said absolutely nothing about that.
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing about the conditions that we've been going through in
Wait,
Chicago.
was Laquan a descendant of slaves, though?
As far as I know, he's a descendant of the West Side. So I'm assuming that's.
And that's where you get with this
Yeah.
picky stuff.
But
Like,
where I was insulted, and I think that's where my irritation, my frustration, and my anger comes from. I feel like my intelligence is not only being insulted, but the struggle that we're going through, especially if you've had not only your rights violated, but your family taken away from you. How many friends I have that aren't with me, that didn't make it to 18 because we don't have any rights, because we have no human rights. We're not seen as human beings. So for you to come to Chicago of all places, and then she went over on 63rd and Narragansett. She couldn't even go into you. She's talking about she want to reach the people. The people ain't on Narragansett.
And then, another thing we got to realize, it was just a heavy church crowd. It was probably 3 people in there under like 40.
And I do know that DOS resonates with the prosperity ministry.
Oh yeah,
That's a really good marriage right there.
And then they're trying to recapture the black church, and it's so regressive. And like you said, I guess it goes before integration. It goes straight back.
To Booker T. That's
Booker T.
post-Reconstruction blackness. Black people cast down your pale where you are. We are
because
in America.
it's pre-Garvey. Yeah, it's
Right.
pre-Garvey.
And I have a theory about that age group. Now, Chris, you were so eloquent with this woman who you said it's a shame that older people don't want to learn, and she turned it into this thing where you call her old, stupid, and all this other stuff, you know, reaching, Space Jam reach.
Space Jam.
And I have a theory. It's a group of people that were raised to work hard. You were told that if you work hard and you do right and you show up to your job every day and you go to college and you do this and X, Y, and Z and 1, 2, 3, that you get what you deserve. And they are finding out, especially like a lot of people in the age bracket found out that your home can be gone like that. Your job and your pension can be gone like that. And instead of us being angry at the right people, I don't think that in particular that we were given, in particular that age group was given the tools to be even angry at the right people. And I feel like, and I was discussing that with Chris, like anger and frustration and bitterness are some useful tools, but you gotta really apply it in the right way.
Misdirected and maladapted.
Yep.
It's misdirected and maladapted. But then again, I'm a black man. I have no resources. I have no institutions to help me. I'm mad. I want to lash out. And then I see a cop and his badge, and then I see a gay dude walking, switching down the street. Who is easier to lash out? Oh, look at these, they trying to destroy black manhood. They want to put me in, they want to turn us all gay, blah, 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 versus going to the cop, you know? And so it's misdirected aggression.
Absolutely.
I mean, Fanon spoke about that. And there's another book called Guerrillas. And he talked about these various guerrilla movements, the Tamil Tigers. But one group he talked about was the Palestinians. And he said prior to the first Intifada, before the resistance to Zionism was not only made official and organized, but it was given a mission. He said every day in the occupied territories, they would go through the alleys, and they weren't allowed to have guns. So the gangsters and the hood kids, the ghetto dwellers would use knives. And they'd find these bodies with 45, 50, 60 stab wounds, week after week. And they were just, we killing ourselves. That was the rhetoric of the Palestinian Uncle Tom. How we expected to, we want to complain about when a IDF soldier shoot you, but what about Arab on Arab crime? And he said after Yasser Arafat and the PLO came and said, look, here's the analysis. Here's the true enemy. And I know it's easier to go after the dude that owes you a few shekels in an alleyway. But the reason you want to stab this dude well after he's dead over a few shekels is because, and you know who they use? Fanon, wretched of the earth. And it said this is what it, and right now I know a Palestinian, and she said they have these books. They're not allowed to have Fanon. They're not allowed to buy, sell, or trade our outdated, irrelevant leaders. Malcolm X, Fanon. They use Fanonian, the Viet Cong, in order to defeat guerrilla warfare. Kwame Nkrumah, revolutionary warfare, and Marcus Garvey. Ho Chi Minh was a Garveyite. Where you're talking about how these people are calling our scholars and our ideology outdated, and it's being consumed around the world in liberation struggle.
What's crazier than that, when Alienation and Freedom came out in April, it was sold out in 3 days, but it's outdated. It sold out on Amazon in 3 days. And then when you look at how valuable a lot of these books are and how hard to get they are, how are they so worthless?
You want to know where to get some of the best black books? At estate sales of white people's homes.
But that's when they don't want to be white, though. That's when they don't want to be white.
Right. Because I just went to an estate sale at a Hyde Park mansion, not too far from the Obama mansion.
Oh, so you say nothing.
What do you mean?
So
no. This I don't.
You see,
this,
it be
this
your
was
own
happened
kind.
upon.
It be your own people.
No,
This
but
was
look.
happened upon.
But look, Komet, he found that Carlos Cook's book like in Brazil or somewhere.
Right.
Oh man.
He scooped it. No, it was in Spain.
Spain.
Because it was it was with the, yeah.
I couldn't understand what language it was. I just know
Oh, see, I was around in 89, 90,
I was
and
too.
that's when they had bookstores everywhere. You was a baby.
Yeah, like it's like one black bookstore in some cities, like.
Shout out to Frontline Books in Hyde Park. You know, but And
Yeah,
so-
I just think it's really frustrating because me personally, it's hard to find and I want to say this. I want to say this right. It's hard to find black women who aren't beaten into submission. It's hard to find black women who don't find their femininity in being quiet and meek and silent. And so I'm on this search to connect with black women who want to fight for our people and aren't afraid to do it. So I was probably projecting myself onto Yvette when I allowed her to get into my brain. And I kept giving her chance after chance after chance. And Chris kept looking at me like, what are you doing? Why are you listening to this woman? Don't you see? And he's just the you're so amazing, baby.
I mean, look, all
But
it
he
was
was right there
no,
to scoop me up when I saw the light.
all it is, it's like anything. If you
I
start
would be like,
reading,
see, I told you so.
Basically.
yeah.
My wife, I'm like, I told you. Now you want to come. Now you can't come. I told you. So this is when I first told you.
Yeah, I mean, I knew it was gonna play out eventually, but I'm like, once you read and then when you really study and try to hold it up and apply it, I'm just like, it don't work.
And that's what I was gonna say. Like I was asking her questions, and so she resulted. Now, ironically, there was a video that I did talking about the powerlessness of black men in regards to patriarchy, right? She told me that I was attacking black men. I saw the video you did. You were attacking black men and blah 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 blah, and just going in on me, attacking me, and I was just like supremely disappointed. But she literally on Saturday said the exact same thing that I said in my video.
Man.
And who shared it? Was that wasn't that
I mean, it got shared all over Twitter.
oh no, a specific person
Hold up.
shared it and said she was brilliant. Oh, she's just such a brilliant mind. But when it came down to me, I was just some angry
That's not bad, but that.
hood book of black girl that was just bitter and just mad.
But they
at black
colonize
men.
information. That's what we're getting at. They colonize information and repackage it so it's palatable for white people.
So, do you guys think, with the DOS movement, is it something that has to be deliberately and consciously opposed, or do you think it's going to burn out and collapse under its own contradiction?
It has to be consciously opposed because otherwise you're going to have a lot of people who waste time and resources. And the main reason why I started to really go in on it was because of the animosity I started seeing between black people and Africans and
Oh, yeah.
Caribbeans. And it was becoming too much. And I'm like, then you see these posts where, you know, she's talking about, I'm going to be indifferent like Kavanaugh, or I'm going to be a proud American like the Tea Party. And I'm just like, you know,
Right.
this is ridiculous. Like, this is worthless. Like,
Well-
I mean, like, I can't do nothing
Well,
with that.
here's one of the comments that we picked up on. Just like John Henry Clark famously said, black people, and in parentheses they put DOS, black people, DOS, you have no friends. Any group of people outside of DOS, treat them like a suspected white supremacist until proven otherwise.
Mainly powerless Africans.
Let's do another one. Family, please find this woman on Twitter and thank her for exposing how evil Igbo Nigerians are. Thank her for exposing who sold us out and the entire continent of Africa, destroying entire nations for some cheap trinkets and filthy money. Evil people reap what you sow. We coming for you. Jesus nor Juju will save you.
And that's why you can't radicalize religion right there. I mean, for one. And two, like, it's a compounded
Who
delusion.
said that?
I don't know, but it got 35 likes of approval. no,
And they don't even know who John Henry Clark is. They don't know who it is.
Obviously, if they
Like I
think
kept
they're not
look,
gonna-
I kept showing them the book. I said, "Who is this?" I mean, it don't matter. They don't know who John Henry Clark is. They don't know Chancellor Williams. They don't know Eric Williams. They don't know any black scholars.
Like, that's fascism. That's
is.
black fascism.
It is.
I get, because my thing is, you gotta name names. You gotta call people out. And John Henry Clark would say Farrakhan, Maulana Karenga. He would say people's
Even
names.
Jonathan Jackson said Maulana Karenga.
Right. They would say people's names. And I'm like, I can't just be out here, certain people be like, or certain movements, certain people believe. I have to say the names. And people, this is when you say we definitely should deliberately and actively stand in opposition to the DOS movement. People is like, well, as long as they trying to do something for black people,
But
as
they're
long
not.
as they're trying to help
Right.
black people,
Right.
why you want to be against another black person doing something positive? Just do what you do. Just focus on what you doing positive and let them do their positivity.
But that's how you get Umar. That's how you get polite. That's how you get, one demagogue after the other. But then people want to be like, oh, all this poverty pimping and all this stuff. But then, as soon as you say something, then you're hating. But
Well, that's how you also get negativity life coaches. So I'll be proud and negative and hateful and a hater, all of that. But I won't be nobody's damn fool, and I won't be lied to. And I honestly, it's like I wish more people would show up and show out. I wish more people would because what I found unfortunate, or what I was kind of irritated with is they inside of the meeting, the DOS meeting, it was a fake echo chamber, and it popped when Yvette started to say, when Yvette said that we needed to be made white. But when I made my comments, it was like all hell broke loose. And outside, we had a crowd of people around us. And we were being asked questions, and we were
Right.
talking to people, and we were trading information, we were conversing with the people inside. But nobody voiced their opinion or their opposition or
On
their
the inside.
confusion while they were
Do you think
inside,
that, and let me tell you, because
including one of the panelists.
who didn't support him.
oh, and I asked her about Skip the Truth Gates, and she laughed about that article that they keep using. So they'll say something, they'll quote John Henry Clark, but then we'll talk about Skip Gates' article.
But both Dr. John Henry Clark and Professor William Mackey said that Skip Gates was a paid hitman. He was an academic and scholarly hitman, meaning that when white people needed a black voice, a legitimate black voice to go against other black people, he said that Dr. Ben, Skip Gates, the same man who was talking about how bad the Africans, and now he said that they were promoting hate, and they were demagogues and liars, and for them to be telling black people about the atrocities whites commit and the grandiosity of African antiquity would only get black people in a mood to be anti-white and to be oppositional. He said that they were demagogues and he said something, paragons of hatred of Dr. Clark. And so he's always been popping up. So when he comes out and say, oh, Africans sold us into slavery, some white, because you don't get to be the chairman of the Black Studies Department of Harvard by representing the interests of black people academically or otherwise.
That's real.
And I'll give you the chronology of where everything kind of went crazy. Antonio Moore, he wrote that article talking about he talked about the good relationship between Africans and whites. I don't know if you saw that, but he wrote this article talking about the relationship, between Africans and whites, and talked about how they kind of created this bond to work against, black people in America. And he got a whole lot of pushback, and people it was ridiculous, because how are they going to take and steal everything from Africans yet have this great relationship? But they were still going with that Skip the Truth narrative, and it was just ridiculous. And then that's when I got into it with Antonio, then Yvette, and they kept trying to push it, but it's anti-intellectual at the core. And that's why they're trying to radicalize the black church, because they want this preacher congregation dynamic that has always existed with the Nation of Islam, with various organizations where you can't challenge, you can't question anything, and then when everything goes all to hell, then it's black people's fault. Oh, and everybody's too ignorant, or you don't know enough.
Well, and even to go off of that, what you asked, you kind of asked, what do you see happening basically with this movement? And I see, if there isn't like and I hate to use this, but it's the only word that's coming to mind. If there isn't like a safety net for the fallout, all hell is going to break loose temporarily, right? So I think Chris asked you, I think this is before we went live at the last Sunday at Nubians for Literacy meeting. Chris asked you, how do you, what did you say, baby? You said something like, how do you radicalize people, or how do you?
How do you organize was it the Democratic Party? No, I think it was
how do you get people to read, or how do you get people to be more radical? And you said you don't.
No, it was how do you organize black people who are dogmatically committed to the Democratic Party, and you said just leave them alone in a nutshell.
Just leave them alone, right? So that registered with me, because in a way it was almost like I'm trying to convince people and appeal to their common sense, but there isn't any there, so I have to do it not to change their minds, but to have something organized for when it all goes to hell, because it is.
Dr. Wright said behavior is changed and maintained by its consequences. So when you're talking about the masses, how did Mao Zedong take a bunch of peasants and turn them into communists? Because he said, if you're not communist, we will cut out your tongue.
Yep.
And I know that's unpleasant. That's very unpleasant for us to think about. But if you go to somebody and say, well, being anti-academic, being anti-African, being individualist, acting against the interests of your people will bring you these rewards, then that's how the vast majority of the people will go. Mm-hmm. And so when you have to say, just like we went to the government never gave us anything out of love. No. One thing he said, Professor William Mackey said, we need to let go of the belief that white people will do right by us as soon as they figure out how.
And that's, that's the other part of their whole movement, is that if we educate them, if we show them how poor we are, then they'll give us money. But it's just this delusion that they think that white people are unaware of, our poverty, and it's just ridiculous.
Right, and so what we have to do is the people who do want, because most people don't want to impact the world. No. Most people don't even want to impact their block. Most people, their interests don't extend beyond themselves. And then when the few people who it does extend beyond themselves, it extends to immediate family, if that, nuclear family. But there are people who are interested in how the entire world functions. Many people can't think, I don't care about the polar ice caps. I don't care about sperm whales. I don't care about the panda bear. And it's absurd to even bring it up. So with people who do have a multi-generational global perspective, you have to set up the apparatus. You have to set up the maze. Like the white people have set up the maze and put the cheese in one place. We have to reconfigure the walls and put the cheese somewhere else. That's really the unpleasant part of this.
I'm just, and like what you're saying, I never had any intentions on impacting the world. I never did anything that I've done in the last 4 or 5 years. It was never really with the intention to be the one to change the world. It was because I was searching for understanding and to be able to articulate what I'm feeling and going through life, and to be able to talk to myself and work these things out with myself. They say, it was more cathartic than anything. But what I'm finding now is that it's mandatory for people who know better to do better, whatever capacity that is. And I think that not everybody wants to change the world because they don't feel like they can, or they don't understand that who they are and their abilities, whether they can sing or dance or plumb or an electrician or fix cars or write or read or put together books, whatever it is, it can be done for the utilization of your people and the betterment of your people. And so people are seeing like, oh, because everybody wants to be this social justice warrior now. Everybody is out here selling t-shirts, and everybody is out here writing books, and everybody wants to impact the world, but it really has nothing to do with the betterment of our people. And that is at the foundation of the descendant of slaves movement. This is Yvette Carnell's chance to be known for something. But when it all comes out and it all hits the fan, she doesn't really care about the fallout. She doesn't care about these disenchanted people who put thousands of dollars, because you know she's getting that money. She put thousands of dollars into this movement, and when the cards fall, who's gonna pick up the pieces?
Here's the other thing that I think people have to understand is that it's not always ignorance, because one of the panelists tried to like argue me down about, you know, reading and stuff. He didn't say anything, especially after she went into her whole "we need to be made white." But he showed me a picture of all these, you know, Frantz Fanon books, but he didn't say anything at the panel. And I remember, you know, Dr. Ball, he interviewed, I think it was Daruba Ben Wahad, and he talked about how closed door meetings were a rest haven for scoundrels.
I don't.
And what I mean, and it's not always ignorance. They do exactly what the script says to secure their job, to secure resources, or whatever.
But I can't even front. I can't even front. When people, because, you know, for years I stopped being called accepting invitations to speak. I think for one of the last times I was invited out to NYU for their Black Solidarity Day. And I gave a talk on the American Final Solution, you know, identifying genocidal trends against black people in the United States. And after that, you know, the students gathered outside to curse me out, but I didn't, you know, I came out there, I came busting out there. And they were upset because I had used some of, in my presentation, Francis Cress Welsing's writings, and this was the emergency, and the Black Solidarity organization was run by people who also ran the gay black students unions or whatever, and they were like, she was a homophobe, and I'm like, well, okay, what she said was accurate or inaccurate? Let's deal with the accuracy. No, she's hate. But anyway, I'm like, man, I'm done with this. And you also have to, and then when I went to Milwaukee to give a talk to teachers, and I say something that I normally never say, that Jesus was the revolutionary. Because that's you know, to try to get them to understand where I was coming from. And I'm like, how are you a Christian and you submitting to the status quo? You know, and how are you not, because I knew I was talking to a bunch of Christians.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when you go to talk, you do, even some of us people who don't shy away from confrontation, you do try to pattern your wording or your concepts, and you try to marry your concept into what the audience is already resonating with.
That's what I'm trying to work on, because I'm
a
work in progress.
I mean, like, I do get that, but when you say black radical and you say politics, that's a very detailed, that's a very descriptive ideology. That's very clear. So when we're in Chicago, I'm thinking I'm going to hear Jacob Carruthers, I'm going to hear Dr. Bobby E. Wright, I'm going to hear Fred Hampton, I'm going to hear Carter G. Woodson, I'm going to hear all of these. I mean, because there's so many radicals here, we could be naming them for weeks, but you know.
We heard Eric
Fauner,
Richard
Eric Fauner to Du Bois. I'm trying to make that make sense. Like, you know, Du Bois, even though, you know, he wasn't necessarily.
And there's a new book that just came out by a white scholar, and it's all Du Bois' work.
Well, that's fascinating, because I didn't read any Du Bois or wasn't required to read Du Bois in college, but I was required to read Eric Fauner, and I got over that very quickly. And what was one of the comments at the talk was, it's obvious. Somebody stood up and said, "It's obvious to me," and he looked over at us. He said that people are on politics 101. But how do you get to when can we have a conversation of politics 102? And I'm like, why do you want to go to sophomore year instead of getting your PhD?
But they not even in
What
they not
type
even
of
in middle
analogy?
school. They're in fourth
They're
grade.
in 98,
Like
yeah.
I'm trying to figure out, even if we don't agree with Du Bois, because he's made a lot of missteps, and I'm not trying to make him the
That's a
most
nice way to
revolutionary.
put it.
Yeah, I'm being diplomatic.
But he's accurate where he's accurate.
Exactly. So he's right where he's right, and we don't have to make him something that he's not. But
Right.
in terms of his research, we can value that, and I think it's ridiculous.
I mean, he's the father of sociology. I hate when
Exactly.
people say he's the father of black sociology.
No,
he's the father of sociology.
Who came before him?
Right.
Because the goal is whiteness, so why wouldn't you refer to white men? And I'm not even gonna say
And
that.
see,
I'm better
no,
myself.
but look, here's the thing that's very disturbing. It's like, all of these great black scholars who put out all of this great work, the thing that's somewhat disturbing is that when they don't say anything, people will continue to steal, and then when somebody takes their idea and starts to make money off of it, it's too late. And I just think it's important that we start a pattern of not allowing black intellectuals to have their work colonized, So, we gotta speak out, because otherwise you'll look up and somebody will be doing a lecture on something you wrote, and it'll be too late.
Yeah. I mean, academic theft is, this is capitalism. Everything has to be
Yeah.
monetized and exploited.
And this goes back to kind of what you were saying about Francis Cresswell saying, I lost a lot of associates. There was this whole thing on Facebook with, people my age group that just didn't understand my evolution and my change. I have a big heart for black people, in particular, gender and sexuality non-conforming Africans. I have a big heart for my people who are the outcasts of the outcasts. I remember walking to school, my friends and them getting beat up and things, and I had to fight for them because nobody else would, whether they were gay or trans. And one of the things that I think Huey P. Newton says is that they could possibly be the most revolutionary people, but at the same time, they're the most vulnerable. And so what happens is they will stay within this bubble of themselves in order to protect themselves. And so when they see or hear someone like Francis Cresswell sing, they don't hear anything else. They can't talk about the accuracy because all they can think about is the violence. All they can think about is the pain. All they can think about is the rejection from their own people. And that is a reality. That's an absolute reality. And so what happens is this social justice warrior thing pops up, and everybody wants to be fair, and everybody has a big heart because that's how our people are. But they have an inability to digest this information, and so they start going off into the
And they get played.
LGBT
But-
crowd. But they don't see it as being played. Look at Serena Williams.
Right, but look at the ultimate outcome. That's why they got curfews in Boys Town. And they got
They put a curfew in Boys Town.
and they have no loitering statutes in Boys Town. And the gay mecca of Chicago does everything in its power to keep the South Side. There's a whole article, the War for Boys Town. So I haven't seen.
I lived there for 3 years.
Because I have I did a show called Corrupt Alliances or something about. I just talked about all the various alliances that black people have had with immigrants, with Irish, with Jews, LGBT, feminists, gender alliances, every single alliance that black people were a part of that actually won some concessions from the status quo. And how black people always got the short end of the stick, and we got beat over the head with that. So, it's really when Garvey said race first, and a lot of people think race first is race only.
Right.
But Garvey said race first, and there has been no historical occurrence or political outcome that I see that has been able to contradict his race first analysis. Even Du Bois had to capitulate when he denounced race first. He capitulated much later, much after he helped the government to subvert Garvey. He capitulated that race first. If it's not race first, then you got a very weak and unsustainable foundation for everything else you build on.
I mean, look at the celebration of trans women, the so-called celebration of trans women. It becomes popular when it's a Caitlyn Jenner, but there's no mass movement to target this phenom of black trans women that are being murdered. They're being slaughtered.
Right, but what about CC McDonald, the trans that slit the throat of a white skinhead? You know, where nobody speaks of it.
Right.
That's a folk hero.
Yep.
But
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And it's unfortunate. And those people who have the potential, as Hugh Newton says, to be the most revolutionary.
I mean, they gotta speak up. You know, they gotta.
It's not even that they're not speaking up. They are speaking up. They're not being heard.
Yeah.
They're not being heard. They're not being taken seriously. But again, as you say, who would you rather knock down? Who would you rather ignore? Would you rather knock down the police, or would you rather knock down this trans woman who's minding her own business?
We have a lot beyond DOS. We have a lot of emergent and established ideologies in the black community. In terms of, you say we should confront DOS. Well, we got black Hebrew Israelites, the Moors, the black capitalists. I mean, that Yvette was formerly of, you know, the black Juneteenthers. There's even various hostile sects within the reparations movement. M. Cobra being one of the biggest, but there's a lot of upstart black reparations. With all of this conflict, and you're saying we should start to, you know, call them out and expose them, but I mean, with all this confusion in the community with DOS and other ideologies, how would a person figure out what the hell should I do? Who should I join up with? I want to make a positive impact. I want to be down. I want to do something good. You know, I want to be heard or seen. And you're telling me I can't align according to my sexual orientations or gender identity. I can't align according to a black woman with a black feminist. I can't align being a black citizen of America with the DOS. Who am I supposed to, you know, posse up with?
I would say I've been burned so much with so-called radicals in Chicago. I've been burned so much with organizing. I've been burned so much with marching and rallying and organizations. I'm not going to mention those organizations, but I've come into conflict so much because there was very little consistency, and it was always very religious, or let's go with the status quo. And I'll say, it took a dude all the way on the East Coast to introduce me to you, who is in my very own city. But when I saw Kiki come at you, she came at you so hard one day. I'm like, dang! And you took it, and you didn't run away from it. You acknowledged what she was saying. You didn't insult her, and you kept it moving. People who can.
But that's only because she doesn't have a man. Because I would have followed Farrakhan, and I wanted to. I'm supposed to follow our great leader. So I had to deal straight with her. If she had a man, I would have done like Farrakhan told us to, and talk. When a woman acts out, you talk to her. I can't believe somebody in 2018 can say that publicly and still be.
Well, she has a woman.
Seen
so
as a respected.
She
has
a woman.
Right. So there's nobody you can talk. They're just out of control.
I mean, like, for starters,
It just blows my mind that he was able to say that, and people are just like, hey, okay. You know, if he can say it and get away with it, then I'm gonna say it.
Like, for starters, I mean, people could stay away from cults, try to find just a revolutionary organization that has a strong, intellectual foundation who isn't xenophobic, and I think a lot of people, they have to create organizations because, everybody is going to start the spirituality cult, the black capitalist cult, the Hebrew cult, but look at how they're treating their people. And I think that'll be the greatest. I think that'll be the greatest like barometer, because I think too often we want to identify with the resources, but capitalism destroys everything. So I think it has to be an organization that puts the people's interests first. So I just think it's important that if people can't find something, they build, or they find people who just want to work towards the people's interests.
I think there should be certain features or characteristics you should look for whenever you want to join an organization. I think, can you question the leadership?
Exactly.
That's important.
Is there
Exactly.
a process for replacing leadership, and how long has the current leadership been in that position? I say if it's been over for a decade of the same damn leader, leave that organization.
Yep.
If you're not allowed to ask questions or to articulate
Absolutely.
your criticisms in an open forum, where if they say, oh, well, if you have issues, let's go off to the corner and you can go talk to this brother or sister, and they'll speak to any of your issues. So I think that we need to, because I mention them all the time about how to identify whether or not you're in an organization or a cult, because I think that there's so much to be done. There's so many deficits in every direction. If you throw a rock, you're going to find a black issue that needs somebody working on it.
Yes.
So I think that the main thing we should fall back on is rationality, because our main problem is menticide. So I that's what I would kind of instruct people, but maybe we'll have to write down characteristics of a functional black organization.
That sounds great.
Top 10 features. People love lists.
Yeah,
The top
How do you
10
know if you're in a
features,
cult?
and you can, if you're a part of an organization right now, if you love it, you've been there for years, stand up and say, okay, let me see if this is the checklist for my organization. Do we have a leader for life? Are we allowed to articulate? Do we have a stated process for grievances? Is there a balance in the leadership or in the hierarchy of men and women? Is it rationally based? Is there an academic or research element to this thing, or are we all talking about what we believe, how we feel?
Because I was actually thinking, after people have served their duties, maybe they need to have a different role after they've led. Because I think that may even be important. Because I think
That sounds very African.
Yeah, because if we always talk about elders, shouldn't we have people who lead, then become elders, and then work on the intellectual foundation? Whereas if we have people lead forever, then everything just becomes dogmatic,
Right.
and then it becomes a cult, and then you can't question anybody, and then
Right.
everybody's saying the same thing, and that doesn't change anything. Because even Huey Newton, he created an ideological institute so people could push forward ideas, so it would continue after he was gone.
Right. Yeah.
And I hate to bring it back up, but there was one, somebody called into her show, and Chris showed me this, and we actually did a video on it.
It was the Howard
Because
video.
it was
I
so
saw that.
gross.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
It was so gross.
Self-exposure.
But she said that, Antonio Moore came on and pointed out with his wise old sage wisdom that the young lady that called into the show, who was talking about the Negroes at Howard, was being disrespectful because she was talking to an elder and she did not know how to address an elder. But when it came time for Yvette Carnell to create a whole video on Dr. Claude Anderson and all of the personal attacks that she made against him, it's one thing to attack the ideology or your logic or whatever, but it's another thing to attack people. Maybe that's another rule. If you disagree, attack what you're disagreeing on and not the person. Because I guess apparently me and Chris are half white. My mama white, his mama white, his daddy white. This was so, Lord.
And since we're on that, somebody actually brought to my attention that some of the work that my dad did was, documented in this book called Black Dixie, where he worked with SCLC, Operation Breadbasket. So, it's just crazy people can make stuff out, out of thin air.
But I mean, that's the thing. They don't know who you are. They don't know the legacy that you come from. They have no idea. And it's
let's go to some of the comments online.
Sure.
One person is asking why we don't have Yvette here or reach out to Yvette for the conversation. I'll start with me.
Okay.
Yvette told me she didn't want to have a public conversation, that my issues with her should be discussed between the two of us. And I told her that my issues with her are not personal. I have no issues with her personally. I don't know how she arranges her cabinet. I don't know how she, arranges her sock drawer. That's personal. I own all of my issues with Yvette are her stated ideology. What is she is advocating and pushing to the public. So my problems with her is what she is pushing to the public. So I speak publicly about what she articulates publicly and my position and my counter positions publicly. There is nothing for Yvette and I to discuss publicly. And I told her that when she said I was wrong for not contacting her and talking to her publicly. The reason she's not on this show and I'm not on her show is because she blocked me across social media. Every single time Yvette has engaged with me or interacted with me, I have responded directly to her, publicly. When she has inboxed me or tried to engage me personally, I don't. And she has to know if she sends me something personally, I'm going to post it publicly because we have no personal relationship, we have no personal interactions, and there's nothing personal between, as you said. So Yvette is welcome to come on this show. And if Yvette wants to have me on her show, let me not say that because I don't know. Because I mean when Omar was here, Omar came to the Sabi Museum, and it was $50 a ticket. I was able to see Public Enemy for less than that.
That's right.
But people were like, you need to go confront Umar. You need to go confront Umar. Here's and I'm like, it's $50, and they will, we'll buy your ticket. And I see with this whole, what's his name, Sonetter thing.
Yeah.
This whole, because again, I'm from the era where, I sat on the stage back when, I debated Harry Allen publicly about is Africa under attack, and he was following the whole Neely Fuller motto and everything. But it wasn't a spectacle. It was an actual debate. And there was no like us going online prior to the debate, I'm going to destroy him. It's about to be so I've always been kind of shunned that because I was on Sonetter back when he was hustling VHS tapes. He used to distribute some of my talks that I gave at Mackey's group. So the reason she's not talking to me, long story short, she's the one, I've never blocked her across social media platform. I'm currently under block. And I'm willing to go on her platform or have her come on here if she wants, or just discuss it publicly. But she's the one that cut off channels of contact. Now you can say why isn't she?
I mean, it's
it's
a similar thing, and it's unfortunate because what you were talking about with Umar and Sonetter and all these people, and it's the reason why I was so I had an aversion to Pan-Africanism because there was never really any talk about the ideology itself. There was only insults and craziness and foolishness going back and forth. Now, I've definitely, if you've seen my videos on YouTube, I will make commentary, and I've laughed my head off at some of these things, but
Right.
I never claimed to be the princess or the queen or the, anything like that.
Big Mama.
Like I said, right, Big Mama. I never claimed to be any of those things, but I've when I had questions, I engaged Yvette directly. And so people are missing a big piece of the story that I kind of honestly don't even want to rehash because it's foolishness. She resorted to insulting me as a woman, as a person, not answering or identifying my questions. And even more so when I got there in her face, in person, and several other people in the room, they had the opportunity to say anything they wanted to me. And if you know me, and if you saw me, I don't back down from anything. But those very people went back with their little Twitter fingers and had the most to say about what happened in that room. So much so that the moderators on Yvette's YouTube channel had to tell them to stop talking about me. So it's not me that's running from anything. And I've addressed this several times. You need to ask your homegirl why she's not answering to
Chris?
the tribunal.
Okay, Chris, why you
I had
sitting across from me.
I had the audacity to read, so I followed the book list. I bought some books, so I did the Black Radical, litmus test, and I held her to it. And all she could do was kind of crumble when I held her to stuff she was claiming. She said Black Radical, and then she tried to act like all Africans were just docile, but. And then I got into it with Antonio over the whole article of him saying that Africans and white people had this union, and I'm just like, how could you even argue that? So every time we've had any kind of intellectual dialogue, they could never deal with the ideas, and I even saw that Dr. Barr had an issue because what's so crazy to me was that she said Pan-Africanism is dead, but she interviews, Africana, philosophy teachers. So basically, she's telling people that she's used their ideas that their job is worthless. Because if you're teaching Africana studies, that's Pan-Africanism. So what happens is, because her or Antonio, they don't read, because they can't give you any political education. I could run the gamut of Malcolm, Kwame Ture, H. Rap Brown, George Jackson, Frantz Fanon, but as soon as you address them, then they just go into you don't know enough, respect your elders. It's the whole church rhetoric of I'm older than you, so don't challenge me. But as soon as you get into that, it becomes this kind of weird code. And it all started when they couldn't answer my questions. Now, perfect example. Monday I asked you about continentalism with Chinwezu, and Nkrumah. You just answered the question and we just kept moving. With them is, oh, you can't talk to me, how dare you.
No, I told you I had to go and review the text. I had to go and review the dispute. I didn't answer. I said I'm going to come back and answer next week because I wanted to review the thing because I didn't want to just be
But that's
speaking.
my thing though. It's people who are, and no shade, but it's people who are 15, 20, 30 years older than us who have these sophomoric, immature responses to actual. I didn't even confront Yvette. I was not confrontational. I just asked
But
questions.
speaking
and
to
I got
Tanika's concern, everyone here is willing to, has had past dialogues and engagement with Yvette.
Yeah.
Did you ever block Yvette across social media?
No, I don't.
Did you ever
no.
block Yvette across
Nope.
social media?
Never, not
I've
once.
never blocked Yvette across social media, but she's blocked all three of us. Are you still, even after all of that, willing to engage in conversation, dialogue, or debate with
Oh, yeah, of
Yvette
course.
or other descendants of slaves
Of course.
promoters?
Absolutely.
Of course.
So that speaks to that. She's not here because she don't want to be here, not because
Exactly.
she hasn't been allowed or been welcomed to be here.
Because I had, even going to the meeting,
No, go on.
all I wanted to do was ask, why was Black Power politics of liberation left out of the political, education? And everybody had this weird, tense feeling, and I'm just like,
We were threatened with security when we first walked in. When they first walked in, all it was, oh my God, that is her. Oh, it's you. That's China Fox. Oh my God, it's Chris. And then they got on the microphone and they said, okay, we're gonna have some dialogue here, but just know security is in the building and we will kick you out if we have to. That's the first thing that was
It was
said.
whack. And then here's the other thing that they did that was real whack, was that they tried to bring in one of the typical pork chop black capitalists to put some opposition so they could seem smart. This was something like
Yeah, that
off of
was
a
pitiful.
movie. And it was just, it was horrible. So this whole thing is rooted in the fact that they kind of stand on the intellectual work of other people. Because even if we want to be technical, all they do is go back on Sandy Darity, Derek Hamilton, and that's what they work off of. But when you look
Someone
at,
said stop banging on the table. I think it's
sorry.
President.
So
Boss Flora said that's
Oh.
causing a feedback.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
sorry
no,
to
but,
interrupt you.
They basically stand, on the intellectual work of people, that have done the work, but when it comes to them actually doing any real, intellectual work, they don't do it. They just refer to other people. So in a nutshell, they only facilitate. But when people engage them who actually do the work, who actually read, who have a great analysis, they just run and dodge and name call, and then they try to put their following on people to discourage people, to scare people. But it's just kind of pathetic, because this is political work.
Those are my 2 words: pitiful and pathetic. And that's all you're gonna get out of me. Because I can't. I honestly, if it wasn't for Chris, I would have given up by now, because I was getting so frustrated. When that whole Kanika Jenkins happened, what was going on was so disgusting to me, and I was just tired. And the only thing that saved me was listening and looking at what was written and just opening up my ears and laying down my defenses and just attempting to be a part of that conversation.
Okay, so we got another comment asserting that Africans actually did have a union with white people.
Okay, and so does
where's
the
the
chick on
evidence of
63rd.
that?
Okay, so does
I mean,
Tanya down the street.
They had collaborators in every culture. So are we gonna say that Jewish people have to pay other Jewish people, reparations? Are we gonna say that traders in every culture have to pay everybody reparations? I mean, but where's the evidence that Africans?
They're both signatories to the United Nations. I mean, I don't understand what. And here's my thing. It's about the ultimate outcome. You tell me Africans sold slaves, and beyond the emotional and the, what did they do with the resources?
That's what we're
I
trying
know,
to figure out.
I
Where is
know
it?
the Jewish participation in the slave trade. I know about the Portuguese, the Spaniards, the Dutch, the British, the French. I know every nation. If you don't have anything, like, why would we go? Irish are racist as hell. But when you're discussing reparations, the Irish didn't get none of that slave money, and the Irish economy is one of the weakest. The Greeks. When you look at the weakest, the strongest EU economies directly correlate with the economies that were most vested in the slave trade, except for Portugal and Spain at this point, because they did some other things when they ousted the money managers and all that, but they were the progenitors of it. I'm just saying, if that's the case, what did the Africans do with the money and resources that they made selling Africans? Because that was the most lucrative enterprise of that era.
But if there was such a union, why am I reading Huey Newton talk about how, for Limo, when they beat Portugal, the U.S. would always bail them out, because African revolutionaries had plenty of victories, and every time, they would beat somebody, the U.S. would come in and bail them out with resources and weapons. Mm-hmm. Now, they were telling me that our struggle was separate from the African struggle. But if they have, 53, military bases in Africa, and the same military that will stop a riot will stop a coup, in Africa. So I'm trying to figure out, how is it separate if the United States is all over Africa?
And
they
it's
control the
also,
resources.
every time you examine it, it has always been central to the national security of the United States to isolate black Americans from foreign entanglements and engagements with other struggles. The U.S. government deliberately did everything in its power to keep black people isolated from the anti-colonial movement or decolonization movement in sub-Saharan Africa. They did everything in their power to keep black people from engaging in the non-alignment movement in Latin America during the U.S. colonization, the Good Neighbor policy. They did everything they could to make sure there wasn't a black delegation in the Caribbean Federation. When Manny Marable and the Caribbean socialists say, why do we want all these little rinky-dink countries? Let's create a united Caribbean and pool our resources and unite militarily. Black people wanted in on that. Even when Mussolini and the fascists were invading Ethiopia, black men in Harlem in the United States wanted to volunteer to go fight against the fascists in North Africa, just like the white people in the United States were going into Spain to fight against Franco and the fascists, and the United States denied black people visas to go fight and take up arms in African struggles. So when you say, and when you have a fundamental ideology and agenda to separate Africans of the diaspora, not only do you separate the Africans, the diaspora, from the Africans of the continent, you create a further division within the diaspora. You are a treasonous black person.
Absolutely.
And it
You are a
speaks-
threat to the
Oh.
fundamental
Absolutely.
survival of black people.
Absolutely.
That's what I have to conclude. She's an enemy of the people at this
And,
point.
and when I said that, they said that I was going too far, and that I just needed to hear her out. And really, even one of the people on the panel, the reason why we got the reason why we got in, is because I sent an email and they said that it was full. One of the people on the panel personally invited us there because he said that he wanted for us to be opposition, or he said that we aren't as different as we thought that we were, and he wanted us
They
to
love
come.
playing this conciliatory capitulation.
Yeah,
BS.
they knew what was gonna happen.
And as soon as you get in there, it's a different story. But
They wanted it to be.
you know, it just goes back to memorandum. It goes back to memorandum 46. They don't want us to unify because they know it threatens the status quo. You know,
Right. And literally, this whole thing, when white people do it, it's bad, and when black people do it, it's good. When Reagan bombed Libya, there was literally in I think it was 87, 88, there was uproar in the black community. That was like one of the first formal black movements I saw, when black people were like, how dare you bomb our homeland, our motherland. When Obama bombed Libya, we're like, look, Obama's showing strength. When white people say divide and conquer, it's one of, oh, they're dividing us. They're trying to, it's Willie Lynch all over again. So when white people divide us, it's a problem. When white people divide us, it weakens us. But then another black person preaches division, it strengthens us. Where does this whole, if whitey do it, it's wrong, but if black folks do it, then it must be good? What the hell is
I
that?
think you need to understand what division means. What does division mean? Because people say we're divisive all the time. And I think that division breeds clarity. I think that true division, when you, as like you say, self-exposure. They eventually will show who they are, but you got to be able to know what to look for and to see what it is. So, I mean,
I think there's a difference between division and purging, though. Because if you got toxic elements, reactionary elements within your community, and you're saying, I'm going to turn up the heat to purify this in order to get rid of these reactionary elements so we can get to the core radical seed. It's different than saying, without any examination, you're not a part of it. So you're an African, you're from Nigeria, I don't know your ideology, I don't know your agenda, I don't know what you stand in solidarity with, I don't need to know it because you're out. That's division. Whereas saying, you're a capitalist, you're aligned with the people who are against our community, you come with an insidious agenda, therefore you're out. To me, that's purging as opposed to dividing.
well, look what you brought up how you're a Nigerian, so automatically you have to prove yourself before you're even considered my ally, and then you have to prove that your ancestors didn't sell mine. Well, we were just reading The West and the Rest of Us, Chinwezu, and how he was saying that, if you're going to have that argument, then you have to question yourself. You have to prove to yourself that your ancestors weren't traitors.
But then,
If
right.
you're going to have that same argument, it has to be applied on both sides. Otherwise, it's
Right.
nonsense.
Are you a descendant of a house Negro?
Exactly. Are you a descendant of an
your
overseer?
right?
Myth of Black Capitalism talked about how black slave masters, and I only say black, but it's not even black, it's Negro, but they engaged in slavery to make profit. And a lot of people thought that it was only to free our people, but the same black slave masters, became black capitalists. And
Right.
that's what people don't get.
Right. I mean, but like as you said earlier, they have traitors in every race.
Yep.
There are neo-Nazis in Israel, and I hate the term neo-Nazi, by the way,
Yeah.
because I think the Nazis are neo-Americans.
Yeah.
I mean, I read Mein Kampf, and he was mimicking Americans. So the Nazis were neo-Americans. Americans acting towards racial purity, racial aggression, racial segregation and extermination and genocide. That's before, Hitler's Jewish mother and Hitler's father got together and ever gave birth to him. That predates all of that. So how the hell are you a Nazi when you're acting like a Yankee Doodle American?
I mean, but look how they protect them, though. I mean, they protect Nazis better than they do any black people I've ever seen.
Right.
I mean,
so
you could tell by the smile on Jason Van Dyke's face when he got a second-degree murder charge. He knew what was up.
Yeah.
He knew he would be shipped out of Cook County. He
And
knew
he's
would
a
be
folk
run
hero, and the
He's a
Aryan
folk hero.
Brotherhood already have a cozy cell for him, and his
Absolutely.
commissary is already thick,
With the
and
finest
he's gonna slide out on appeal, just like Stacey Koon did, the dude that beat Rodney King within to an inch of his life. They convicted him. We danced in the street after we were passed out from celebration. They let him slip out the back of the jail. But I talk.
Oh, but they couldn't, when they came to Chicago, they couldn't say none of that.
Let's talk about money, because they're accusing us. How can we attack
we
Yvette?
broke, right?
No. They claiming we getting money too. We over here getting money over
Getting
here.
money, man.
We getting
I
money.
wish.
Right.
Off
So
the
we
exploitation of
can't
black
criticize Yvette Carnell and her capitalistic and agenda if you and I and Chris, we over here getting money too. We getting paid.
Well, see, here's the
in
thing.
full.
Well, by Yvette's own mouth, she said that black people cannot be capitalists because it's not within our nature and it's not within our moralistic values. So my problem is this. If you're going to argue for reparations, you cannot argue for integration. You cannot argue for reformation. If you're going to argue for reparations, then you have to argue for revolution. And you're not going to ask for what they owe. You're going to take it. So if you're not going to talk about taking it, if you're not going to talk about a total radical change, if you're not going to talk about a total radical change, then you're a liar.
I was a member of INBA.
And you pump faking.
Right. I was a member of the National Black United Front. And the National Black United Front has a standing alliance with NCOBRA, the National Reparations Movement. And these are the guys that went to Geneva and to the International Court of Justice to plead our case for reparations, and they tried to internationalize the reparations movement. And they wanted to make me the Kansas City co-chair, because in their charter, you have to have two in every local chapter. You have to have two, and one has to be a male and one has to be a female. Really looks good on paper. And so I was supposed to replace Samori. He's like, I want Diallo to take. And so I wrote up my agenda for reparations, and all I did was go look at the Town Mill Tiger. I looked at the Zionists. I looked at the Native American treaties, and I looked at all the people who got what could be identified as reparations. And I said, this is what they did, and this is what we're doing. And one thing that the people who got reparations did, we're not doing one thing that they did, besides make the appeal and lay out the evidence. Everybody did that. Say, well, here's my claim, and here's my appeal. But other than that, everything they did, we're not doing. So one thing you do, you don't reinvent the wheel. If you see someone do something and they're successful and you're going to mimic that. But anyway, long story short, I didn't get the co-chairmanship. Because it's just like the Voting Rights Act. A lot of our leaders profit from our suffering. Yeah, I do ask for money. Go to Patreon, go donate. I do need resources. But what I'm saying is, it's very obvious where my resources go and what I'm advocating for, whether I got $1 or $1 million. My agenda has always been laid out. It's written, it's spoken. Hell, if I knew music and poetry, I'd put it in that form too. So my issue is not people securing resources. My issue is what they intend to do, what's their track record with those resources. Building an all-boys school in the woods. All being hiding in the woods. To me, I mean, just like, even if you got the money, I just don't understand how that's going to reassert black manhood.
Well,
I mean, you're just going to produce a bunch of black
I don't
Kavanaugh.
understand why we have to starve. I don't understand why there's an expectation of suffering. Now, we know we got to struggle,
But do we have to suffer?
Because
suffer
every
through our
Savior
struggle?
dies. I don't
Now
care
look,
if
they
you're
sitting
Jesus or
out here
Malcolm.
telling you to go to Umar and pay. They gonna pay $50 for you to go see Umar and argue with him. But hell, that's half of a light bill.
Yeah.
So we're out here trying to make it just like everybody else. It's not off of the exploitation of our people. It's off of the I don't understand how you'll spend $100 to go see Trey Songz, but then
But
question.
you want your scholars to starve.
Exactly.
What?
You want your freedom fighters to starve.
You
having
watching
a
And
these
not
guys-
only
you watching
while
grown men bang
Mayweather
their
is
heads up
literally
against each
throwing
other.
bricks of money at your face,
It's
calling you garbage.
ridiculousness.
Well,
Yeah, I
That's
mean, it's
craziness.
crazy. Like, we gotta read books with holes in our socks, and we can't get nothing. And I mean,
Shake
and the
our hands
person
for
you
no
read,
knowledge.
the person who wrote the book, wrote it with holes in his socks.
exactly. So
And I'll tell you one damn thing. I'm not getting anywhere near the return that people think that I am.
Right.
I'm losing way more.
So am I.
I'm losing way more than
I've
I'm
been supplementing this show since it came on the air. I've had to put in my own resources and donate my time and resources. I'm not getting paid for this, and beyond that, I have to put up my own earnings to keep the show afloat. You know.
Absolutely.
I mean, like, it goes back to, even she said, consumption isn't power. Yet she uses Africa. I mean, it's like what, 1 million, 2 million Africans here, or something. But she's saying that their $80,000 hides our failure, but then in the same breath will say how $80,000 ain't any money if it's somebody here getting 80,000. So, you know, she'll use money when it's convenient to hate on other Africans or Caribbeans,
And it's
but
okay.
it's just ridiculous, because, you know, at the end of the day, it's about playing ball with people who are going to pay you. So if she says, I just want my money, because she said this several times, she's going to be the first one to cash in, and then when they gentrify, she may have a house, but everybody else is going to have to move.
And that's how it always goes. But then we can live vicariously through her.
And I
through her
want
success.
to make something perfectly clear.
Uh.
There was a show that Yvette did. When she was trying to trash Boyce, the person who called his partner in crime for the last 5-6 years.
Right.
When she was trashing him, she said Boyce wasn't paying her any more than $1,200 a month for her work while she's living. Where was she living? In Atlanta, Georgia, and you could find a 3-bedroom for $1,000. But that's neither here nor there. Get some roommates, right? Like I've had for the last 4 years. But when she said that, she said I had to depend on my family to supplement my income. Now, I'm trying. If I got me, I have me. That's what I've been out doing. I've been out working myself crazy and putting myself out there, because I can't go and say, hey, my family's gonna take care of me. I have to figure out how to take care of my mother.
Right.
Before he passed, I had to figure out how to take care of my father. So we aren't the same. You wanna say that we aren't the same when it comes to Africans? We aren't the same.
We gotta wrap up. Can I say one more thing about this exposing thing?
Yeah.
We work together. Since you've got here, we're organizing this study group. We got other things we need to build on. But let's say we fall out. Like, I innocently have some woman pay me a compliment on the internet, and then she goes off and jumps down on me and through no fault of my own. But let's say we fall out, and then all of a sudden I got all these documents about, look what Chris and China are doing, and they're fake, and I got all this evidence. The day after we fall out, to me, a principled person was the moment at the height of your allegiance, at the height of your cooperation. Hey, I see some issues here. Fix it, or I'm going to have to tell the people. What's with all these people when they're all good? They validating each other, they section it, they're like, yeah, this is my ally, this is my person, this is my ace boon, you know what? But the moment y'all fall out, you got all this documentation about how the other person isn't real. That makes you corrupt, and I said that to her. I said that to Yvette. You got all this tea. Are we still saying tea?
Yeah.
You got all this tea on Boyce Watkins.
Shout out to you.
And it only got spilled the day after y'all fell out? That again, that's that whole behind the boards meeting thing, not being public, not being honest. I tell you, if I'm working with anybody and I see corruption, I don't care if we're the best of friends.
And that's what Malcolm did. That's what
Right,
Malcolm
that's
did.
what Malcolm did. That's why I don't care if we the best of friends. If I see something that's contradictory, compromising, or corrupt, I'm calling it out. Even if we still, I ain't gonna wait for, oh, let me collect this dossier on Chris, and then the moment Chris crosses me, I'm gonna expose him. That means I'm corrupt. If I do that, when I do that,
Stay consistent.
you need to call me out on it too, because that's the kind of nonsense we getting up to, and that's why, we have these rotten cores in our organization. Corruption, the main problem with corruption is it makes us vulnerable to subversion by our enemies. And that's why they want corrupt African governments and they subvert just African governments. But I really appreciate y'all. Of course, I gotta have y'all back more often.
Oh yeah.
Because it's so much mess. But how can they contact you, find you, give your contact information?
Well, first of all,
Let me cut. I'm a little over time, but give your contact info for my listeners that aren't familiar with your work.
You can find me at Chris Marshall and Christopher Marshall on Facebook, and you can find me at NFL NBC, the Book Club Nubians for Literacy National Book Club, and yeah, that's where you can find me.
A lot of hurtful memes.
And since y'all talking about money, y'all can find me on patreon.com/ChinaFox. And you can find me on youtube.com/ChinaFox, CHYNAFOX, and on Instagram. And
Chronicles of
Facebook.
Niggatry is coming soon on YouTube, so stay tuned.
All right. So, thanks again, Chris Marshall, China Fox. Until next time, this is the Brody Diallo Show, Q4 Radio, AM68, iTunes, TuneIn app. I'll see y'all Wednesday morning, live again on the air, and check for Monday Q&A with Brody Diallo live on YouTube and Facebook. Peace.
That's a jam, though. Did somebody make this for you?
No.
No?
No, this is an old rap song. My name is D-Nice, although I hate to admit it.
Go ahead.
Taking out the suckers, you don't know how I did it.
What?
This is an old track from when I was a kid.
What, 40?
The early 90s. I'm from the early 90s. The golden era of